Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Look, I said before, consistency is key. If my light stops failing on me, and we are back, we're being consistent for weeks running. Hopefully, we can start getting these episodes out more during the week, not just one time a week. But Don, how are you, mate? First of all,
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I'm all good. I mean, it's kind of been a pretty quiet week for the MMA world. Not much has
it
really
has.
been going on. Uh, yeah, it's kind of boring when it's like weeks like this. Obviously, we've got a big pay per view next week, UFC 304. The fight week or the fight night this weekend and the fight night that just happened. Those cards are horrendous in my opinion. I don't know
Yeah,
what's going on. It seems like anytime there's gonna be like a great pay per view, there seems to be like two shit weeks of what the
yeah.
UFC put on. But yeah, 304 is gonna be great. I don't know. I just want to start off by saying, what do you think about the UFC's promotion for this event? It doesn't seem like they've done any so far for 304, and it's literally a week away.
It's a strange one because Bilal and Leon is certainly a main event you have to promote. You have to promote Leon and Bilal. I actually have to give a lot of credit to Bilal. I think Bilal has generated interest for this fight. We haven't really heard anything from Leon. Bilal does talk. I mean, he might not say what the fuck. He'll say like what the fudge, and it just kind of doesn't work. But fair play to Bilal Muhammad. I wanted to get into this main event actually. I'm glad you mentioned it because look, with Bilal and Leon Edwards, right? I kind of see this narrative brewing in the MMA community, about how Leon Edwards and Bilal fought the first time. And look, I feel like that eye poke certainly changed the fight. And I feel like that helped Bilal Muhammad's career indirectly because Bilal Muhammad's career would have gone, I think, a very, very different way had that eye poke not have happened. It was certainly heading towards a Leon Edwards finish. But since then, Bilal's bulked up. He's picked up some big wins. And I don't know about you, Don, but with Bilal Muhammad, I made a joke video. For those of you that are actually messaging Don Dada saying, I can't believe Ben picked Bilal. I didn't pick Bilal. We'll get to that in a minute. But I just think whenever we write off fighters like Sean Strickland against Adesanya, I know it's a different fight, but we look at how Israel Adesanya fought building up to the Sean Strickland fight. This kind of poking, being at range, technical striking style, very good takedown defense. Leon Edwards kind of reminds me about Israel Adesanya, and he might have a few more title defenses. But I think Leon Edwards has a habit of not really going out there to win. You have to kind of beat him. The saying is you have to beat the champion. I don't agree with that necessarily. I think whenever you win the fight, you just win the fight. But Leon Edwards fights like someone with that mentality. He kind of fights like if you're not going to raise your level, he'll coast. He'll just poke at you from a distance, no problem. A straight left hand, low kick, jab. So, Don, I was wondering what you think about this main event, and do you think Bilal Muhammad has any chance at pulling off an upset?
Yeah, Bilal Muhammad definitely has a chance of pulling up or pulling off an upset. I don't think if he does beat Leon, it's as big of an upset as what Strickland on the Adesanya because like nobody and people do try and say to pick Strickland. No, you didn't. Nobody picked
No,
Sean Strickland to beat Israel
no.
Adesanya. Not one singular person on the face of the earth picked him to win. But yeah, Bilal
Yeah,
Muhammad, I think this fight will be closer than what the Colby Covington fight was with Leon Edwards. I do think Bilal Muhammad, I mean, realistically, like you said, he is creating a bit of hype for himself now. Maybe not the right hype. Everybody shits on him and says he's boring as hell. Um, but he is creating somewhat of a name for himself. I think Bilal Muhammad will know he's not at that level where he's going to lose this fight, come off a win, and get another title fight. This is probably going to
yeah,
be it for Bilal Muhammad. So I think this guy will have trained extremely hard. Obviously, we know that he does do work with the likes of Islam Makhachev and Habib Nurmagomedov, which I think will be beneficial to pick the brains of those guys, considering Islam Makhachev says that when he sparred Leon Edwards, now granted that was years ago, how he did get the upper hand off him, so it will be interesting to see will Bilal Muhammad be taught tricks and stuff like that, etc., to exploit Leon's weaknesses, but I just don't. I can see a clear path to victory for Leon. I just don't
yeah.
see a clear path to victory for Bilal Muhammad. But what I will say is that, or what I will say is, this fight will go all 5 rounds, and I feel sorry for the people in Manchester who are going to be up all night and having to stay through that main event.
Yeah, man. Like, honestly, now Don Dada said that, put your bets on a Bilal Muhammad knockout because
Yeah, Bilal round one.
whatever this guy says, the exact opposite seems to happen. The thing with Bilal Muhammad is like, I don't think a knockout will happen. I'm not trying to take the piss out of Bilal, but if you're not knocking out guys that are really easily hit, and stuff like that, how are you going to knock out a guy that's much longer, that, moves with punches, is really hard to catch clean? He has been caught clean and rocked, by Nate Diaz, who necessarily, for welterweight, certainly never hit the hardest.
No.
And he really badly rocked Leon Edwards, but that was with like just a pitch perfect shot. And Leon Edwards really lost concentration in that moment. So unless Bilal catches Leon with something he just did not see coming at all, the saying is the shots that you don't see coming knock you out. I really don't see Bilal Muhammad landing that kind of shot. Here's the thing with Bilal, though. Here's why I mentioned Leon Edwards' like coasting kind of style. Against Gilbert Burns, now people often mention the injury. Both of them had injuries going into that fight.
That
it wasn't
annoys me so much talking about that fight.
And since then, I kind of feel like Gilbert Burns' best days might have been behind him, or certainly are now. I think Gilbert Burns, actually, from an IQ standpoint, he had a lot of attributes I thought would give Bilal Muhammad a lot of problems, like power, like his jiu-jitsu. He showed against Hamzat Chimaev. He's not easy to hold down, not at all. But Bilal Muhammad had his way with him, and there was an intelligence and preparation element, I feel, to that point of the fight, which is why I mentioned that going into the Leon Edwards fight. Guys like Israel Adesanya and Leon Edwards, who kind of coast as champions, or even George St. Pierre back in the day, there is an element of when a hungry contender who has been denied his opportunity time and time again, who has a chip on his shoulder, who has, maybe come from struggle, who is being hated on and slept on by the entire MMA world, like Strickland against Adesanya. And I know Strickland and Bilal Muhammad could not be further apart in similarities in style, but what Sean Strickland did to Adesanya, I felt, was a huge part in hunger and urgency, and maybe Bilal Muhammad goes in there and he puts the volume on Leon. Leon shells up, and round by round, Bilal Muhammad builds momentum. I certainly think there's a possibility Bilal puts forward pressure on Leon, takes a bit of damage, keeps pushing the pressure, takes Leon down, smothers him against the fence. We could see that kind of fight, and we've seen when Leon does get overcrowded, you can blame it on elevation, you can blame it on whatever you want to blame it on. But in that Kamaru Usman 2 fight, and even in the Kamaru Usman 1 fight, the similarities were the same. When Usman overwhelmed Leon, when he put the volume on him, when he smothered him against the fence, even though Leon was doing well and defending well, he got overcrowded, and it felt like at the time, up until one of the most spectacular knockouts you'll ever see, it felt like at the time Leon was kind of giving up. He wasn't giving up, but it felt like he was like being overwhelmed and giving up. And Kamaru Usman said he grew in confidence because he felt like Leon was giving up and he felt like Leon was breaking. And I just wondered on whether Bilal Muhammad is going to be able to kind of overwhelm Leon.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. Stylistically, it's going to be, their styles don't really mesh together. Like I said, I don't think this is going to be like fight of the year, etc. I really don't see that happening. I just think Leon Edwards is the best welterweight on the face of the earth right now. I really don't see anybody in the welterweight division that's not Bilal. I don't think Bilal Muhammad beats him. I don't think Shavkat Rakhmonov beats him, who a lot of people go on about. I really don't think anybody right now beats him. Like you said, it's hard to judge off the first fight because that was kind of like an anomaly. You never really see Leon be that aggressive, and which is kind of weird, like why he was so aggressive in that fight. And you thought that if he was going to be aggressive in any fight, it might have been that Colby Covington fight where obviously the build-up took a bit of a bad turn. Now, they do seem to have a bit of a rivalry back and forth. It will be interesting to see what they're like when the press conference happens, when they get their face-offs happening. But like you said, there is a lot of comparisons to make between Sean Strickland and Bilal Muhammad at the fact of this is going to be it for those guys. obviously Sean Strickland will probably get another title shot now because of the star that he is. But this is it. If Bilal Muhammad doesn't win the belt now, he's gonna have to go on like another 5-6 fight win streak before he even gets close to it, in my opinion. So I think Bilal Muhammad will definitely be game for this fight. I just think Leon is going to be too much for him. But what about the co-main event? What do you think about that? Because stuff has happened this week that makes this fight a bit more interesting to see what route the UFC is going to go. Will this Tom Aspinall Curtis Blades be for the undisputed title now with all the issues going on with John Jones, or will it still be for the interim title?
Yeah, so with the issues going on with John Jones, I'll like bridge from that into that fight. I kind of feel like John Jones won't get any kind of punishment
No.
from this situation. There's no. I'm not a lawyer, but there's no real way of proving that John Jones did the things that he's been accused of doing. And I kind of made a video on it. Look, John Jones, if he got in a verbal confrontation with me and Don Dada, obviously we'd smash his head in. No. If
Yeah,
John
well.
Jones got in a verbal confrontation with me and Don Dada, and then after it, he started trying to shake our hands, and, we would shit ourselves and shake his hand and probably, well, I don't know about you, Don, but we probably would like, yeah, 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 you know, especially if you're a female drug testing agent in his home where he's got a shotgun and he's got a dog,
Yeah.
you probably are going to be cordial with John Jones after he kind of gets aggressive with you and after he confronts you. So I feel like there's no real way of proving what happened. I don't know what happened. I'm not going to say whether I believe it or whether I don't, because really I don't have anything to go off. I really, really don't. All I will say is John Jones has a track record. That's all I will say. That's
Yeah.
all I will say.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
and then
it's a weird scenario, like, because I think he got charged with 2 misdemeanors. Now, obviously, that's a lot different from what you get charged with over here. That's an American term, I believe. I don't think it's anything too serious. I don't think a misdemeanor means that you've done something too serious. And by looking at the thing as well, he could face under a year in prison, and I think he's going to get fined up to $1,500, which isn't that big of a fine, especially for someone like him
yeah,
anyway. But yeah, it's a weird one. Like you said, trouble has always followed John Jones. Now, we're not saying that we can confirm it happened or it didn't, but there is a proven track record that John Jones has had issues like this in the past. What will be interesting to see though is how Dana White will spin this as to why this then makes John Jones pound for pound number one.
everyone's been saying that. It'll be like, this is why he's the GOAT.
Yeah,
You
literally.
don't see people doing that. It'll be like, he'll come back after another year layoff and they'll be like, he'll like somehow get a robbery decision over Tom Aspinall or something. And he'll be like, this is why he's the GOAT. He got arrested, fucking comes back,
Yeah.
wins the belt.
Kicked the
Um,
fuck out of a woman,
no,
then came back and robbed John Jones. Or robbed Tom
no,
Arsenal.
it's one of them. Like, we don't know what happened, but we can go off John Jones's track record, and I certainly think the courts will do that as well. Um, but look, going into this Tom Aspinall Curtis Blades fight again, I don't think it'll be for the undisputed heavyweight title. I don't think he will get convicted of anything even until this fight actually happens. Um, if the UFC were going to strip John Jones, they definitely would have done it by now.
Yeah.
Definitely, 100% would have done it by now. And they haven't done it even when John's had a massive injury. They haven't even suggested it. They won't let John fight anyone else except Stipe next, even though the fans don't want to see it. So, John, obviously, the UFC value John Jones now. They see him as someone that has earned the right to do kind of what he wants. And whether or not I agree with that is irrelevant. That's just what the UFC is doing. So I don't think it'll be for the world title. But I want to pose a question to you, Don. We got a little snippet of Curtis Blades versus Tom, and it was a little snippet.
Yeah.
But Curtis was landing on Tom a few times before that leg injury happened. Curtis landed a few shots on Tom. I think it was probably because Tom was a little bit inexperienced in big moments and a little bit less composed. But going into this fight, do you see any kind of banana skin situation here?
I mean, it's kind of different. Like if you're comparing this to stuff like in boxing, for example, like when Deontay Wilder was fighting Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua was fighting Otto Wallen, is pretty much everyone was like, oh, well, these guys are fighting later on in the year, and then obviously that ended up slipping up because they had a fight already planned out. Where with this one for Tom Aspinall, it's not as if like he's being guaranteed. He knows that if he wins this, he's fighting John Jones next. This is kind of like his title fight, him defending the belt. Obviously, there is history there with Curtis Blades. I think Blades, like in terms of, I think he's very well rounded. He's a good boxer, obviously an extremely high level grappler. Has got some nasty ground and pound as well. Some of the elbows he can throw when he has you to the mat are disgusting. But the IQ is the issue with Curtis Blades, and time again he gets put in these big positions. Time and time again, his fight IQ lets him down. Against Sergey, he chose to just stand there with him. He didn't shoot. You know, we've seen this before. But yeah, like you said, in their first fight, very small, not much to go off. Tom Aspinall does tend to do that, though, have his chin up in the air. That is like a
Yeah.
fault that he has. Even after the Curtis Blades fight, it's still a thing that he does. But I feel like Tom Aspinall, he's going into this fight as the champion, interim champion, but he will be ready for this big moment. It's in front of his home crowd. He kind of called for this Curtis Blades fight as well. I think this is going to be a real coming out party, pause, for Tom Aspinall in his hometown in Manchester. I think he will stop Curtis Blades inside 2 rounds.
Yeah, man. Like, I think you make a good point there. Whenever the pressure seems to be off for Curtis Blades, right? And I say off, and I'll say what happens when it's on in a second, if you bear with me. When it's off against Shelton Almeida, and everyone kind of before the fight seemed to, and I feel like I kind of fell into this trap, seemed to kind of write Blades off.
Yeah.
Because Almeida seemed like he seemed like way more of an intelligent fighter. We knew was powerful. We knew Blades had good wrestling. And in the first round, man, Almeida had his way with him, and it looked like, wow,
Yeah, he
Gelton
ragdolled
Almeida
him.
ragdolling Curtis Blades. But when the pressure is off, Blade seems to put on a really good win streak. He seems to really start to put things together. Boxing looks better than ever. Striking looks better than ever. You know, bang, gets knocked out, you know, in his next fight. When he's like near a title shot or when he's like near an interim title shot, he just seems to crumble. There's something there that just doesn't seem to come together for him.
Yeah.
And Curtis Blades, if you ask any MMA fan, and Don, I'm sure you'll agree, has every physical attribute to be a top fighter. Powerful, physically strong, athletic. He's not like a blob in the heavyweight division. He's super athletic. Mm-hmm. He's got really good takedowns, really good takedown defense. Hits hard, and he's shown good striking at times. He has shown really good striking. But with Blades and Tom, there seems to be an element where when it's time for Tom to deliver, he delivers. When it's time for Blades to deliver, a little bit like Cowboy Cerrone back in the day, it just doesn't come together quite at the highest level. Yeah. And you get a lot of fighters like that throughout history.
I think that with this fight here, it's going to be interesting to see because Curtis Blades, I don't really know what his game plan is going to be in here. It's kind of like the Bilal Muhammad fight the Bilal and Leon fight where Tom is that well rounded in my opinion. I don't see a path to victory for Curtis Blades outside of knocking him out. And that has to be a factor in every heavyweight fight because the guys are massive. One punch can just knock you out in that division. The guys are so heavy. Yeah. But I just think Tom Aspinall, say Blades does take him down, Aspinall, great jiu-jitsu. Now, what will be interesting to see, how does Tom Aspinall work off his back? If Curtis Blades is able to get him down, again, big if. On the feet, I think boxing-wise, Tom Aspinall, faster, more powerful, more explosive. I feel like that he's going to stop Curtis Blades in the second round. I think there's going to be pretty one-sided, in my opinion. But I'm looking forward to it, and Curtis Blades, I think Tom Aspinall beats him easy in 2 rounds.
Yeah, like, I feel like you make a good point again. Like, we've not seen Tom Aspinall off his back. So if he does get taken down, like, it's all well and good. Like, he's out-grappled a lot of good fighters. Andrei Arlovski's no joke on the ground. He's had a lot of experience. But I get the feeling, is his wrestling good or is it elite? And Blades might be able to test that. Obviously, like, people from Britain, people from the UK are not necessarily known for being elite grapplers.
Yeah.
So let's see if Blades... I certainly think if Blades was to go with a good game plan, I'd wrestle Tom. You know, I'd see how good Tom Aspinall's cardio is when you're smothering him, you know, when you're working his body, when you're trying to land ground and pound. Like, I feel like there's an element of Tom Aspinall where I wonder actually how good Tom Aspinall's cardio is, because Tom Aspinall's a very fast, explosive fighter. You know, he works in from distance and rushes in with powerful shots. I wonder if he's like a Conor McGregor, a fast switch fighter, but that can't really sustain it over the distance.
Yeah, that is a good point because we really haven't seen Tom Aspinall rack up a lot of minutes in the cage. I mean, I don't know if the guy's even made it past the second round in his UFC career. I don't think so. But yeah, I don't know. I just think Curtis Blades. I think Tom Aspinall, how fast he moves, etc. I don't think Curtis Blades moves particularly fast. I mean, not many heavyweights will match Tom Aspinall in speed, etc.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just see it on the feet. I just see them being in boxing range with one another, and I just see Tom Aspinall just not like one punch KOing him, but I feel like he'll maybe pull back, counter, or counter Curtis Blades, and then just put the volume on him. And I think Blades will just shell up, hit the mat, and that'll be it done. But I'm looking forward to it though. This will be a good test. I mean, I kind of feel like to win this fight, if Tom Aspinall doesn't like Jorge Masvidal, Curtis Blades, and Blades has any success, then everybody will be like, oh, well, imagine what John Jones would do to him. Imagine what John Jones would do to him. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like there's going to be a lot of that.
Which could be a good thing for Tom, because actually, if he has a shit performance against Blades, I 100% guarantee you, John Jones... I'm not saying he's ducking Tom Aspinall, but I feel like it wouldn't surprise me if Tom looks a bit more human against Blades. John Jones all of a sudden will kind of be like, oh, I want that Aspinall fight. You know, that wouldn't surprise me.
I don't know. I feel like if he looks shit against Curtis Blades, then John Jones will probably come out and go like, he's not my level. Do you know what I mean? He's not my level. So the only one I'm gonna fight Stipe is because of his legacy. Like, Tom isn't on my level, and just leave it at that.
Just to quickly ask you, I mentioned before about people writing off Bilal Muhammad against against Leon Edwards. I almost forgot who they were fighting. But UFC, it's my fault. It's my fault. I have a bad memory. I'm a casual. That's what it is. I'm coming out as one right now. I've literally got a script on Dada sent in front of me right now that I'm reading off, telling me what to say. I'm joking, I don't. Or do I don't know. You lot tell me. So basically, with Stipe and John Jones, I was thinking, is there any possibility that fight is more interesting than we think it is?
No. Absolutely not. And what really solidified that, funny you asked me that, is I seen a clip yesterday of Stipe on the pads, and like I really just don't want to see this fight. Like, I really don't want to see it. Like, have you seen it?
Oh, whoa. Yeah, no, listen. I've not seen it, man.
I'll tag you if I see it, but it's like, I just seen it and just thought, like, what is this? Like, what? Just retire. Like, in my opinion, he's the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. Just retire. Now, if he does beat John Jones, which I think there is a real... Honestly, I think... And it's not impossible because anything can happen in combat sports, but it's very, very close to impossible. If he beats John Jones, that is without a doubt the biggest upset in UFC history, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, people will... There'll be a lot of people after that fight where they'll say, like, oh, but it's not. John Jones is out of his prime, you know. But you have to look at the context behind what Stipe would be doing. This isn't... You might look at it and say, but Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time. Lads, ladies, theirs, thems. This is literally Stipe Miocic, 41. 41.
Yeah.
He has been firefighting for the past 3 years. if if he beat John Jones, you've got to understand what he's coming in off. 41 years old, a 4-year layoff, guys. A four. He last fought in December of 2020. I do. Was it December of 2020 or December of 2019?
2020. Yeah, it would be 2020. It's
I
coming
mean,
up to 4 years.
three and a bit years, right? He is coming off a huge layoff at the age of 41 after getting so badly knocked out. Like, people forget.
Yeah, he
Ngannou
got
knocking out
messed
Stipe
up.
like that is one of the worst knockouts I've ever seen. Like, it's one of the most brutal. He folded like a deck chair. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. Before that, he was inactive as well. He had 3 wars with Daniel Cormier, 3 wars. One in which he got knocked out. The other, he got dominated up until the championship rounds. And the other, that was brutal. Eye pokes, a brutal war. It was a really, really good fight.
Yeah.
Um, Stipe's got a lot of mileage, is what I'm saying. He's took a lot of damage, and he had his chin really badly cracked against Ngannou. And at that kind of age, I really don't think that helps your chin at all. I really, really don't. But what I'm saying is, coming off that kind of context, beating John Jones would be absolutely insane.
Yeah, it would be mad. I actually think like if you just look at what he's done in his whole career, becoming a 2-time heavyweight champion, that say he beat John Jones, he'd have 2 wins over Daniel Cormier, a win over John Jones, a win over Francis Ngannou. I think
Yeah.
he would have an argument for creeping into the top 5, but like honest to God, like I like Stipe, but I think that footage he put up of him on pads, honest to God, like it was bad. Like if you haven't seen it, watch it. Like it's not good. It really hasn't made me want to watch this fight.
Yeah, man. Like, for me, I think for all of us MMA fans, this fight is just something we're just gonna have to accept. It's kind of inevitable. I'm not really super interested in it. I don't think Stipe has much of a chance, but I just think it's kind of interesting to imagine what that kind of world would be like if Stipe Miocic did it. That would be insane. You know. What else is there on UFC 304? Paddy Pimblett, Bobby Green.
Paddy Pimblett, Bobby
Oh,
Green. I think Paddy Pimblett's gonna suffer his first UFC loss here. In my opinion, I think Bobby Green's gonna beat him.
do you?
Yeah, or sorry, King
King
Green or
Green.
whatever the fuck he calls himself now.
Yeah, man. Like, with this fight, I think it's interesting because by the way, just obviously you lot will have seen it by the time this video's out, but the MMA Guru and Paddy Pimblett have actually had an interview, which I think will be really interesting to see. And the MMA Guru told Paddy Pimblett to his face, well, not online, not to his face, but it was
Yeah.
like webcam. It wasn't to his face, but he said like his performance was shit against Jared Gordon. So I don't know if you've seen that, but that'll
I've seen
certainly
a
be
clip
something
of
to
it,
look.
but I didn't know the video's actually. Is it out yet, or is it in the
I
process
don't
of
know,
coming
but
out?
I think it's coming up, depending on what time this video's out. But I think it'll be interesting. The reason why I mention it is to see where Paddy Pimblett's brain's at. Is he kind of still? It feels like he's always trying to deflect the Jared Gordon fight. It feels like a lot of good fighters. Here's what Paddy Pimblett has to realise for me. A lot of good fighters, in fact, every good fighter has had a shit performance against someone they probably should have dominated. You know, Charles Oliveira has quit in fights and then ended up becoming world champion. Like, it feels like Paddy's always been kind of hung up on this Jared Gordon fight. It's a weird one. Maybe it's because he's kind of been written off completely after that fight, which is what gets me onto my prediction for this fight. I personally think Paddy Pimblett's going to beat Bobby Green. The reason being, on the feet, I think it is going to be. It will be quite one-sided if it stays on the feet. Bobby Green would absolutely piece Paddy Pimblett up on the feet, going off what we've seen from them both. But against Jim Miller, Bobby Green was having his way with Jim Miller, but Jim Miller, whenever he'd land one shot, would really badly rock Bobby Green.
Yeah, that's a
And I
really
think
good
after
point.
that Jalen Turner fight and that going into that Jim Miller fight, there's been a clear decline in his chin. It's just he's got really good recovery and really good like defensive movement. But whenever he gets caught by Jim Miller, like once or twice, he got really badly wobbled. And I think if Paddy Pimblett mixes in takedowns, I think he's going to land something like a right overhand and knock Bobby Green out. I think he's actually going to pull something big off here. After quite a close fight, I think he'll get tagged up a lot in the fight, don't get me wrong. But I think Paddy Pimblett is better than a lot of people give him credit for. And I think we're going to see that. But this kind of interview with MMA Guru, for me, is going to give me a bit of an interesting kind of idea to where Paddy Pimblett's at.
Yeah, in terms of the Jared Gordon fight, I feel like maybe, well, to me anyway, the reason why Paddy Pimblett kind of always goes on, or that fight is always going to be there, is because I think of the way he handled himself after the fight, and I feel like Paddy Pimblett now kind of knows that he handled it wrong. You know, like when Joe Rogan went up to him and was like, close fight, and he's like, it wasn't even close.
No,
Like,
it wasn't. Yeah.
yeah, do you know what I mean? I feel like now, like, he knows, he's like, yeah, I was in the wrong there. I've came across as a bit of a dick. Um, like, you made good points there. Like, Bobby Green, we've seen him before be able just to, he's not the biggest puncher, but he's able to tag you a lot. We've seen it in the Drew Dober fight against Bobby Green. Bobby Green was just lighting him up, and then bang, split second, Drew Dober just lands clean on the chin. I'm not saying Paddy Pimblett has the same power as Drew Dober, but what I'm saying is we've seen it where Bobby Green is just lighting him up, lighting him up. It looks easy for him, then bang, gets cracked with one punch, because Bobby Green's striking defense isn't great. It's a lot of reliant on head movement, and stuff like that. His hands are never up near his face. His hands are always down, which again is beneficial to his style because he is so fluent in each stance. I feel like if Paddy Pimblett is going to beat Bobby Green, he's going to really have to rely heavy on his grappling, to be honest. I don't really see Paddy Pimblett having any success on the feet against Bobby Green. Obviously, there is that chance he could land a big shot, but I think for every shot Paddy Pimblett lands, Bobby Green's probably going to hit him with about fucking 6 or 7. Like, Bobby Green's boxing, in my opinion, is pretty underrated. I think he's got really fast hands, and just how fluent the guy is in his stance, I think Paddy Pimblett will have a really hard time timing him on the feet, getting anything going. But if he chooses to grapple with Bobby Green, with Paddy Pimblett being so much bigger than Bobby Green, and obviously Paddy Pimblett is an elite jiu-jitsu artist. Like, on the mat, this guy is elite, and if he gets Bobby Green to the mat, he will sub Bobby Green fairly quickly, in my opinion. But I am taking Bobby Green to beat him by decision.
Yeah, man. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's a real. I don't like calling people gatekeepers, but Bobby Green, he is a gatekeeper. Yes. The real elite level guys, one-handed. Bobby Green's highly rated by a lot of MMA fans, but he's a little overrated in the sense that actually, whenever elite guys have gone in there against him, they've absolutely beat the fuck out of him, you know, and that's just the truth.
Yeah.
You know, Islam Makhachev's a prime example. A real top pound-for-pound future champion goes in there against him and just absolutely fucking easily beats him. I don't think Paddy Pimblett, respectfully, is Islam Makhachev. He is that kind of caliber fighter. And I think everyone kind of knows that. But I do think he's going to have enough to beat Bobby Green. And after this fight, I think we're all going to kind of look at Paddy Pimblett as a big name that is like a top 10 level fighter, top 11 level fighter, but not quite top 5, I feel like.
Yeah, it'll be... This is going to be a good fight for Paddy Pimblett. It's going to be really telling on how elite the guy actually is. There are some other pretty decent fights just to clear up UFC 304. We'll start with one that I think is going to be a real letdown. Muhammad Mokaev versus Manel Kape. I like Manel Kape. Obviously, he's had his issues with the weight cut in the flyweight division. I think this guy, if he had have made weight in his last fight against Nicolau, I think that's who he was facing, I think he would have beat him and then would have been next in line for Pantoja. Unfortunately, he's missed weight now and has drew the short straw. I think Muhammad Mokaev is going to beat Manel Kape by a very boring decision. He's going to beat him by like fucking ball sniff. It's going to be the most boring fight ever.
Yeah, I think the UFC have punished. I know Dana White says we don't try and push fights in a certain direction. This is a prime example of knowing styles make fights and kind of punishing someone. Rightfully so. Listen, I'm not actually against punishing fighters in this kind of way. I'm really not. Manel Kape fucking deserves it. You know, Manel Kape's a fighter I rate really highly, and he's the fighter that I think, had he have become champion, could save the flyweight division. He's really charismatic. He's got a real good shit talking attitude. He's a really flashy striker. I think Manel Kape could have beat Pantoja, but Mohamed Bukayev, stylistically, is a fucking nightmare for Manel Kape. An absolute nightmare. You know, I feel like it's going to be like you said, a lot of taunting from Manel Kape, but like off his back.
Yeah.
You know,
A
I
lot of
feel
like
like it's going to
slapping
be
him
a
whenever.
fight where Manel Kape doesn't take a lot of damage. He kind of gets his back taken a lot on the ground. And, you know, they're doing a lot of stalling, and Manel Kape's just kind of like giving the thumbs up to the crowd. But ultimately, it just won't be enough. I think he'll lose the fight. Not much damage landed by either of them. I just don't think he'll be able to get going. That fight's really interesting because it's like a case of, is Mohamed Bakayev that guy, or is he not that guy? I do think he is that guy. I don't think he beats Steve Erceg, though. I don't think he beats Alexandre Pantoja. I think Pantoja, number one, would not be scared at all to go to the ground with Mohamed Mukayev.
No.
And number two, I think he can drag Mohamed Mukayev into a dogfight. And I'm not sure Mohamed Mukayev could come out of that kind of fight on top. And with Steve Erceg, I think Steve Erceg's the next flyweight champion. I don't know about you. I just think he's too technical for Mohamed Mukayev. But it'll be really, really interesting to see where either Manel Kape or Mohamed Mukayev go from this fight. But what I will say is, Manel Kape winning this fight would put the flyweight division in a really, really good place.
Yeah, I feel like though this kind of has to be like a number one contender fight in a sense, because I know you've got Royval, who has just beaten Moreno, but we've already seen Royval fight Pantoja twice before, and their second fight at 296 was fairly boring. Pantoja just out-grappled the guy. So I feel like this is going to be a number one contender fight. You've obviously got Albazi out there, but I feel like they'll probably do him versus Royval to see who would be. You know, there's multiple contender fights I think you can make in the flyweight division. This being one, Royval and Albazi being another, Moreno versus someone else, Steve Erceg versus Kai Kara-France. There's a lot of title contender fights that can be made in this division, which I think makes the flyweight division exciting. I know a lot of people aren't a big fan of the flyweight division. I mean, there's not many big personalities in there outside of... Let's see what's happened to Ben. Oh, Ben must be reconnecting. Yeah, there's not many exciting personalities in the flyweight division. Maybe outside of, you've got the likes of Manel Kape. Yeah, outside of that, there isn't really many exciting fighters in that division. But in terms of fight quality, it is a very high level division in my opinion. I am looking forward to that fight. Another fight that I am really looking forward to though is Giga Chikadze versus Arnold Allen. I think that fight right there has gone under the radar. I think Arnold Allen versus Giga Chikadze is definitely going to be fight of the night. It's not really getting that much attention. I understand why. Both guys aren't massive shit talkers or massive names, but I think Arnold Allen will come to perform against Giga Chikadze in Manchester. I think it will definitely be fight of the night, and I expect Arnold Allen to get the win in that fight. Technical difficulty there, yeah, but back to what I was saying, we finally got Ben back in the call. Yeah, Giga Chikadze, Arnold Allen, I think it will definitely be fight of the night. It has gone under the radar. I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I'm most looking forward to the two title fights, but this is definitely up there. I think Arnold Allen is going to win it. Who do you think wins this fight?
Yeah, I think, man, you remember the Giga Chikadze hype train. But, you know, Giga Chikadze is a weird fighter because who was it that burst his bubble? I think it was Calvin Kattar.
Yeah, Calvin Kattar just out-grappled him.
He, overlooked Calvin Kattar. That's probably one of the biggest, humblings in UFC history, looking back at it. He completely... I've never seen anyone disrespect Calvin Kattar, because that was Calvin Kattar coming off that Max Holloway fight, and everyone was just like, oh, Giga Chikadze is going to absolutely smash him. And he showed really poor cardio, really poor head movement, just really poor kickboxing defense in general. But offensively, it cannot be denied, Giga Chikadze is a dangerous, dangerous fighter. And Arnold Allen is there to be hit. Arnold Allen can make mistakes. He can rush into shots. And he has been proven that Arnold Allen can be hurt. He can take a lot of shots, but he can be hurt. I think Arnold Allen, in his last fight, he's coming off a fight where he has something to prove. He kind of got robbed against Evloev, I kind of felt. Not in the sense that Evloev's a bad fighter or that Arnold Allen should have won the fight. I just think there was a lot of shenanigans in that fight, if you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I feel like in this fight, Arnold Allen will get it done against Giga. I think he's going to come in aggressive. I think they'll both absolutely tag each other up at times. But I think Arnold Allen ultimately will overwhelm Giga.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a great... it honestly is the fight I think is going to win Fight of the Night. But I think that's it in terms of big fights for UFC 304. We've covered them. Just quickly to round off the episode, this weekend we've got Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson in Tampa. I think the fight is 8 rounds, or is it 10? I'm not too sure, but what's your opinion on it? Who do you think is going to win this one?
Yeah, so I like this fight. I actually like this fight better than Mike Tyson and Jake Paul.
Same.
I really, really do. The reason being is I think Mike Perry is someone that is young. In fact, I know Mike Perry is someone that is young. He's juiced up. He's amped up. He's an aggressive fighter. He's got knockout in his hands. He's got power in his hands. Sorry. I feel like Mike Perry can make something happen, but ultimately he doesn't naturally compete at 200 pounds or 199 or whatever it is. I think he'll be a lot slower. His movement isn't necessarily the best. He's much more of a slugger. Bare knuckle is a sport where you kind of stood toe to toe constantly. And there's no room for blocking. You can't really avoid punches, so you've just got to kind of go to war. Jake Paul won't do that with Mike Perry. I think he'll just stay behind a jab, and I think he'll pick Mike Perry off. And I actually think he's going to stop Mike Perry in the late rounds.
Oh, see, I don't know about that. I do think Jake Paul will drop him. But yeah, I think Mike Perry, definitely in the opening rounds, can offer Jake Paul a lot of problems. I think he will push Jake Paul in this fight. I don't think Jake Paul has the best cardio, to be honest. And I think that could be exploited in this fight. But like you said, Mike Perry doesn't normally fight at this weight, so how is he going to look carrying this extra weight in there? I think the first 5 rounds, it'll be interesting to see Mike Perry put Jake Paul under the pressure. But I think after that, Jake Paul will more than likely turn Mike Perry into a heavy bag. I think he drops Mike Perry. I don't think he finishes him though. And I think Jake Paul will beat Mike Perry by decision. Although a lot of people kind of shit on Jake Paul, I'm actually interested in seeing this fight. I'm looking forward to it. I think this will be a fun fight to watch, regardless of the outcome. Jake Paul says he's looking to get him out of there in 2 rounds. If he does that, that is extremely impressive, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think he intends on doing that either, and I don't think his coaches intend on him doing that either. I think it's building up and talking up the fight. If he did, like you said, that would be ultra impressive. A real good, capable boxer would do that to Mike Perry. So it would really show Jake Paul has really upped his level if he was able to do that. What I always say about Jake Paul is he's a low-level boxer with really good athleticism. He's young, he's hungry, he's got the best trainers in the world. And when I say low level or average, whatever you want to call it, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. He hasn't got the amateur background. And for what he's doing, I've always kind of respected it. He's beating guys that, although they aren't boxers, they are fighters. Mike Perry isn't a pure boxer. He's a bare-knuckle boxer, which is not boxing. It might be called bare-knuckle boxing, but it's nowhere near a similar sport to traditional boxing, especially in a professional level. So I think Jake Paul is a average level fighter that is getting rid of novices, and I think I'm all here for it. I mean, I'm interested to see how this fight goes down. There's a few fighters that like Nate Diaz and Anderson Silva that have tried to pressure Jake Paul and kind of break his will, but they haven't put the power punches behind it. It felt like Anderson Silva really could have beat Jake Paul. Whenever I I've not really watched that fight in a long time, but when I watched it, I always felt like Anderson Silva just wasn't. It felt like he just wasn't in there to get rid of Jake Paul, and it felt like there were so many chances that he could have. It kind of felt like he was playing with his food at times. It was really, really weird. But with Mike Perry, he's going to try and pressure Jake Paul. He's going to not respect Jake Paul's power until Jake Paul makes him respect that power. And he's going to try and knock Jake Paul out, 100% guaranteed. And for me, that's a fight I'll watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna set up for it, like, but I will watch it in the morning. I'm looking forward to it though. I'm picking Jake Paul. Ben's picking Jake Paul. That's gonna do us for this week's episode. Get them link in bio on TikTok. Charles Oliveira graphic tees. I've got mine. You need to get yours. And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Follow me and Ben on TikTok, Instagram, all that other shite. And we'll see us again in the next one.